Lift your lid. Welcome to Swift Talk with Sherry Swift, helping you experience explosive growth, moving from where you are to where you want to be. Say no to mediocrity and yes to the life you want and deserve. Here is your host, best-selling author, performance coach, and speaker, Sherry Swift.
Welcome to Swift Talk with Sherry Swift. I'm your host, Sherry Swift. We're continuing the conversation in our growth series and having the foundational conversation about spiritual growth. I'm a believer that all growth happens from the inside out, that we become who we're eligible to become because we first believed that we're worth it. Sometimes we have to search deeper for that belief system of self-worth because, let's just face it, most of us have it in us because it was put in us. If someone did an amazing job of embedding in our mindset that we are worth it all and should have it all, we believe it. Now, on the opposite end, if we struggle with finding those affirmative words in our root structure, we have to plant them ourselves. For many of us, this is where spirituality becomes the foundation for our growth. Believing what you can't see, touch, taste, or feel, and knowing that anything is possible. I'm a spiritual person, not a religious person, who believes that spirituality is designed to support each person where they are, and that it is not limited to being practiced in any one way or the other. That everyone could have someone that they hold on to in those questionable times to increase the light, love, faith, and understanding in this world that we live in is a basic right. I believe that it is everyone's basic right, and there is enough space for us all to practice in our own language that supports light and love for everyone. To add and contribute to this important conversation, I'd like to welcome my guest, Angela Lippard. Angela volunteers her time as a deacon at the Christ the Good Shepherd Independent Catholic Church, that's a mouthful, for the last 3 years. As a deacon, she tithes her time supporting and advocating for causes that she believes in, and she may add a non-traditional twist to the conversation of traditional spirituality. Angela, welcome to Swift Talk.
Thank you for having me, Sherry.
I am so excited to have you here today. You know, Angela, I'm really excited to just jump right in and learn a little bit about your relationship with the church, the Christ, the Good Shepherd Independent Catholic Church. I'd like to learn a little more about your relationship and advocacy with the church. Can you tell me a little bit?
Sure. I'm a deacon with the church. I was ordained 3 years ago, and I was one of the founding members about 4 years ago. We are an independent Catholic community, so we are separate from the Roman Catholic Church. First clue would be I'm ordained in the Roman Catholic Church. I would not be an ordained person. I also have the freedom to do outreach with the LGBT community, which is very close to my heart. As a bisexual identifying person, the subject itself is close to my heart and very near and dear to me. But I also personally know what it's like to be excluded from faith traditions and not feel welcome. And so part of my ministry, part of my outreach is letting people know that they are loved and accepted. And that's whether or not they attend our church. I don't evangelize. I am just out there to support people in the community and let them know people of faith support them.
My goodness, what an important conversation in this day and time that we are living and functioning in today. I reached to you specifically because I am, number one, such a spiritual person myself. I am also ordained, and I'm a very spiritual person myself. I have a wonderful wife, and I have lived in a traditional relationship. Had a relationship with a man and been involved in the church from that capacity. And now I connected to the love of my life. And I find that so many people who are living in a maybe non-traditional relationship have a difficult time connecting their opportunity with spirituality and finding a safe place to sit in a church and to connect with God. So I'm very excited for you to bring the conversation. So let's start there. I appreciate your work and your advocacy. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to talk about that specifically because in my faith, I see God present in the love you have with your wife. And so I appreciate the ability to share that.
That's fantastic. Tell me a little bit about, this is what I'm most curious to know about. How does the relationship and your responsibility with the church connect with the LGBT community? Is it the church that is extending an outreach to the community? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, yes. Actually, as it turns out, all of our clergy are a part of the LGBT community, but we also were people that grew up in our particular faith tradition and have a tie to that. For us in particular, it's Catholicism. We appreciate Catholic social teaching as far as the serving the poor, reaching out to the marginalized, but we want our faith to evolve in such a way that we accept everybody and truly appreciate the dignity in everybody. So again, from personal experience, we do that outreach, me in particular, because it's always been a passion of mine, particularly working with the transgender, gender nonconforming community. If you really want to know what love and acceptance is, that community will show you. There are communities that are not as socially accepted as, say, the LGBT part of the community, but they are a community that will welcome you in. And if you're in their space and respecting their space, they will show you what true authenticity looks like and what else would our higher power, our God, the good that's out there, want more than us to be true to self and really celebrate who we are. It's very intrinsic to my spirituality to celebrate people being themselves.
Absolutely. What do you find is the greatest challenge within the church in making everyone feel comfortable and making everyone realize that this is a safe place and that it's welcoming for everyone?
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of rhetoric, and there are a lot of people that are part of mainstream faith traditions that feel like they have the registered trademark on the faith. And unfortunately, while they think they have the registered trademark, they're not really following through with the faith of compassion, and they're using their spots as bully pulpits. So part of the challenge is saying that's not who we are, and that's not how we experience God. That is not our spirituality. And in addition to that, there are places that will say all are welcome, but there is kind of, fine print that says, but don't be who you are in our space.
Yeah.
Or love the sinner and not the sin. And that's flawed too. And so part of it is communicating to people that they're loved as they are, the love they have in their life is celebrated, them being who they are, true to who they are inside is celebrated by our God. And unfortunately, that is not a storyline or a story that's put out there in the mainstream about, say, the Christian faith tradition or other mainstream faith traditions. Our faith tends to get lost in those that might have a bigger megaphone.
Yeah, absolutely. What can we do as people who are spiritual people, who exercise faith, and more importantly, want to exercise opportunity for faith for everyone? What can we do to become more of an advocate? What do you suggest that everyone do?
Well, as far as being an advocate for others, particularly the trans community, gender nonconforming community, which is the community I work with, listening and recognizing the good there, or what I would call God there, being at events, particularly Transgender Day of Remembrance, Transgender Day of Visibility, and hearing people's stories. That would be a good way to advocate, in that we can easily pick up something and say, this is what I think somebody would want, but hearing people in the community, they will tell you what they need. They will tell you what they need to advocate. I also think just connecting with communities are important. It doesn't necessarily have to be a faith community. It could be a humanist community. It could be, a community that you have a lot in common with, but somebody who feeds you and makes you want to exercise compassion towards others and yourself.
That's important. That leads me to, the conversation of spirituality being open and important to be exercised in many different ways. I am non-denominational, which means that I open up the door in my mind to how anyone decides that they want to celebrate, right? That they surround themselves with people that make them feel bigger and better and that bring in the light and, celebrate God or the universe or whichever way it is that fills you and gives you the foundation that's needed and necessary. What do you think in this day and time that we're living in today is the greatest challenge with us coming together as a community and using spirituality as that platform? We're facing a challenging time today, and there's absolutely so much division that's out there. What do you think is one of the greatest challenges as it relates to us being able to just get rid of the titles and come together in love and spirituality?
Well, I think part of the difficulty might be the celebrating differences rather than differences being divisive. I think that that's the biggest thing. I think that we all have to recognize that, yes, there are people that might be more marginalized and we have a responsibility to them, but we shouldn't allow that to be a barrier. Instead, it should be something that joins us together. I mean, in reality, if the least of these is doing well, we all do well. And there's more in common than there is not as far as what we face. And together we are stronger, which I know sounds kind of cliche, but it's true. It's if the LGBT community and the Muslim community and other marginalized communities gather together and recognize the dignity and recognize that we're perhaps marginalized in one way or another, but we can all work together and we can focus on that. I think that would help a lot. But again, I think we tend to focus on what divides us versus celebrating what's diverse.
I agree completely. As a coach, I have conversations with hundreds and hundreds of people on a very regular basis that are looking to go from one place in their life to another. And one of the primary, the initial conversations that I have with people is to try to figure out what it is that they hold on to that's going to hold them and ground them in the difficult times, when you just can't quite put your finger on what's happening right now. And you really just, you can't see that everything's okay. Those times,
Right.
So I try to have those initial conversations with people to say, tell me a little bit about what you believe, because that's where we're going to go when things get tough. Not if things get tough, because they're going to get tough, but when things get tough. What do you say to those people that say, I don't have anything. I don't have any place that I go. I don't have anything that I lean into. What do you say to those people? Because I believe that a lot of times people say they don't have anything because they don't have a relationship with a quote unquote God. And they don't really understand spirituality and the depth of it. So what do you say to those people that say they don't have anything?
I usually try to get them thinking bigger outside of language, and recognizing the good, capital G, good in their life, and the sacred and whether that be the relationships they have or if there's other things that feed them, and recognizing that as something beyond themselves, recognizing that as something, whether they want to call it holy, sacred, spiritual, good energy, but helping them recognize those things as something spiritual to themselves. Because I think, unfortunately, people have a very small idea based on what, say, certain people of faith have told them. This is it, but it's out there somewhere untouchable, but it's not. It's in front of you. It's there in the relationships you have. It's there in the friends you have. It's there in the service you do to others. It's there when you truly love and act on that love with somebody. So just broadening what their concept is of what spirituality or higher power, whatever they want to call it, but whatever's sacred to them.
Agreed. And understanding that the growth of that part of who you are is what makes way for growth in every other area.
Sure. Recognizing that, I think, is kind of the positive in your life. I think if you recognize the sacred, you recognize the positive, and that in turn fosters growth.
Absolutely. So with all of this conversation about spirituality and the options as it relates to spirituality, how to connect with whoever makes you feel whole and recharged and regenerated, tell me a little bit about what the service looks like. If someone decided that they wanted to connect with you at your church, what would that look like? When are services provided? Tell me a little bit about what that looks like.
Sure. Well, like I mentioned earlier, we are in the Catholic tradition, so we do have a Mass. We have Mass 10:30 a.m. every Sunday, and then we also have Mass 7 p.m. on Wednesdays. And for those that were raised Catholic, it would look very similar to what they grew up with as far as certain traditions of the Eucharist. However, what they will see differently is acceptance of the LGBT community, acceptance of ordained women and the gifts and talents women bring to the table, and those being celebrated, and the language being different as far as recognizing both God and those in the seats are beyond gender. And so we are very dedicated to trying to use inclusive language so that we understand, and so that language is powerful. And so if we recognize that God is she, or again, beyond gender, I think more people can connect to that.
That is amazing. Do you mind repeating that last piece for me, please? Just the piece where you said recognizing that God is beyond gender and that God is she, you said?
Right. We recognize God as she. We recognize, for those that are gender nonconforming, God is they, God is he. But language is powerful, and by allowing that God is beyond gender, God is more accessible to all of us. And that in itself, I believe, makes more for a welcoming community.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you, that statement right there is what is the message here, that as it relates to spiritual growth, the opportunity to grow into whatever form of spirituality that is going to provide you with a root system that offers the support that you need in order to become more of who you are purposed to be. There is so much opportunity to connect on a spiritual level, because spirituality is translated into whatever it is, whoever she or he is, that you can connect with. That's fantastic, Angela. I appreciate your perspective there. Is there anything at all that you would like to share about your advocacy or about your perspective before we end our time together here today?
I would just say that while all are welcome at our church, I understand that everybody has a different pathway. There's no wrong door, so to speak. And so if people did need help connecting to a tradition that, say, fits them better, I think sometimes those of us that were raised a particular faith, don't always want to admit how attached that is to part of our identity. And so if somebody wanted to reconnect to that, particularly if they did get something out of that, but they want it to be a community that, again, recognizes the dignity in everybody, including LGBT people, I do have contacts that I'd be more than happy to share with others. And again, my support is always out there. I don't evangelize when I go to events. I try to let my love and support speak for others. And I think that if I could, speak to other ministers to remind them that we should be out there supporting people in the community and make it very clear that the cost isn't, you have to be in our church filling the seats, that we're here to love and support you, and we love and support you as you choose whatever path that leads you to love and to spiritual growth, whatever that might look like.
And there it is right there. Thank you, Angela, for being our guest this week and for sharing your heart, your mindset, and your expertise. How will my listeners find you and your church if they're interested in connecting on a deeper level and receiving resource or support?
Well, the best way to reach us is our Facebook page, actually, and we are Christ the Good Shepherd in Ferndale. Our website is also www.ferndale, FERNDAL, If you go to the ministers page, you are welcome to contact any of our ministers via phone or email.
Okay, fantastic. And is there a place that our listeners can write to you directly?
Our address is 22331 Woodward Avenue, and that's in Ferndale, and our zip code is 48220.
Fantastic. And is there someplace directly that our listeners can write to you, Angela, if they'd like to connect with you? You are such an amazing light and resource. Is there someplace that someone that might want or need support might connect with you directly?
Sure. People are welcome to email me, and my email is rather simple. It's my first name, Angela, Angela, last name Lippard, as in David, @gmail.com.
Okay, fantastic. To our listeners, I am so grateful that you are here with me on this journey, and I want to invite you to connect with me on Instagram @SwiftTalk for upcoming episodes and series and an opportunity to win a free coaching session. Visit with me on my website at sherryswift.com to read my blog on this episode focused on spiritual growth and to receive a bullet-pointed recap on this episode. And then let's be friends on Facebook. You can find me at Swift Transitions. Please write to me at swifttalk@sherryswift.com. Tell me what you thought, your personal experiences and challenges with spiritual growth, and tell me if it's okay to share your letter in one of our upcoming episodes, as I'd love to share. Comment wherever you're listening and tell a friend, because my goal is explosive connections in order to be a life-impacting resource for many. Bring someone along. Life is delicious, my friends. Let's enjoy a great big slice of it together. Till next time.
You've been listening to Swift Talk with Sherry Swift. If you would like to schedule time with Sherry, download the show notes and much, much more. Find it all at www.sherryswift.com.